Hello. I believe it's time to say the job is done. After 6 years of faffing around with this car, it's complete. It's finished. There's nothing else to do. Time to move on to something else. However, complete as a concept, but not as a car. This is littered with tiny jobs yet to do. But that's not what this video is really about. As many as there are small things yet to complete on it, everything is sorted. I don't want to do endless videos where I try and get that dent out, where I remove a scratch on there, where I talk about how I dropped a beer can there, how I managed to scuff the interior of my lockup, damage my bumper. These things will be sorted in time. I've decided it might be good for those that don't know the history of the channel to talk about the complete history of this car. In the 5.5 years that this channel has been running, this car has undergone lots and lots of changes. They're all in a playlist, but I'm going to assume that many of the new people that pop along here won't really be that interested in watching the playlist, and so just for you and for anybody else that doesn't mind a repeated story, maybe I'll tell it better this time. Let's start at the beginning. 7 years ago, I popped down to the yard because I was having a slight disagreement with my lady wife. Wasn't really anything to be concerned with. I just threw a bit of a strop. I'd like that. I'm a nice, calm man. Calm. Then bloody angry out of nowhere. I haven't got a temper problem, by the way. I had a look on this most terrible site called Gumtree. Why? I don't know. Unless you want to start thinking about how things happen for a reason. No, I don't really believe in that either. But what did occur is that this car was up for sale and just about to be taken away for scrap. And I don't mind telling you that I paid £110 for it with 2 months MOT left. I wasn't really expecting it to be any good, and I was surprised to find out that it was. It drove perfectly, but it was tatty. Every corner was scuffed, the bumper was rusty, the wings were rusty. It had a general feel of not really being cared about a great deal. Oh, and the driver's seat had collapsed and there was bits of jagged metal sticking out into my back. But beyond that, I thought, what a great little car. It drove absolutely spot on. I was amazed by how nice it was to drive. So I run it until the MOT expired and then took a chance next door. And it passed without even an advisory. This was the first seed of the Project Nigel idea. And Project Nigel wasn't basically me larking around in a yard. It was taking cars like this that I felt deserved another chance. I took this as an opportunity to make some money. So I sold it with its new MOT for quite a bit more than what I bought it for originally. That's how deals work. There's nothing wrong with that. But it did come back a year later. And then I sold it again, and then it came back. It just felt like it was bouncing back to me because this car just wanted somebody to properly look after it. And being as it was tatty, unloved and saved from scrap for the third time, I decided it wouldn't really do any harm to have a bit of a mess about. And I'm convinced that that bit of a mess about is what really saved this car, because I could have just sold it yet again with another MOT and the alternator replaced, but surely 6 years later it probably won't be around any longer. Doing this with this car has secured its future, because there's no way this is ever going to get sold again. The profile picture on my YouTube channel has remained the same ever since the beginning, and that is of me on the other side of the car, although with the camera angle flipped so it looks like I'm on this side, because I hadn't figured that bit out at that point with its first change, and that was a black door. The very first thing fitted was this boot spoiler off a ZR, which, funnily enough, was found in that lockup down there. The original concept wasn't going to be this. It was simply to just have interchangeable panels, and any of these panels could be bought because I'd just replace it with one of a different colour. I really wasn't that bothered. This car wasn't actually precious, but it soon started to get that way. On the inside, I'd already done these seats because the old ones were knackered. Now actually the frames are the same, but I repaired the sponge with some gaffer tape and some glue, and even after all this time it still works perfectly well. The seats are very comfortable actually, and they always have been. It's always been a very, very pleasant place to sit. I used to have mismatching mirror caps, and this might have been the point where it was becoming a bit less random and just a bit of thought going into how the thing should actually look when I replaced those caps with the chrome caps. And since then I've had many people saying the same thing: why don't you have mismatched wheels? As long as they're the same size, you can do that. Why don't you have mismatched seats? No. I do that in a bit more tuneful. No, that's not a good idea. That's a rather silly idea indeed. You might think that the whole car's just a silly idea, and you'd be right, it is a silly idea. But it's a silly idea with an awful lot of thought gone behind it. Although it may be thoughts that just cropped up at the time. I didn't start off with a pen and paper and thought, yes, with a sonic blue door will be a perfect contrast to the BRG front wing, and the red door on the other side will be a perfect distraction from the sienna gold tub. Yeah, it didn't happen like that at all. With the exception of the new back box and parts supplied by Gregory Elgood, everything on here has been a sacrifice of another car. But a sacrifice of a car that's already reached the end of its life. Rear bumper came off a car long before I started it. And then we have the sonic blue door, which replaced the black door, which looked rather good. But because it was off a Streetwise, rather than taking the panel off of it, I kept it and then used the other panel to make it look right. If I'd have kept the original 25 panel there, it would have looked a bit crap. One of the small jobs might be just to put the nut back in. A similar idea came with this ZR door. I took the panel off the ZR as well, so we get that. And this is where it starts to become a bit artistic. No wonder Peter Spires said it was worth £83,000. At the time I assumed that maybe he had that money spare and he was after buying it. And I didn't even give him a chance. Thank you, Johnny Crook. That did seem like quite a good place to have a little scribble saying what it is, much like it is on the back. But I was doing it with one of those paint pens that you use, for marking parts up for scrap, and it kept coming off. I kept rewriting it, kept coming off. That sticker stayed very well. And the one on the other side. I must be particularly good at applying stickers. Resisted for such a long time when it came to the boot. I was going to keep it gold because that would mean that the car would never be finished. But eventually I gave in to the temptation of a different colour, and this Tahiti blue boot lid, let's rephrase that correctly and say hatch, came off a 25 GTI that my friend David took all the panels off. Then I replicated my Alan Partridge style signature on the back, and there we go, bingo, all done. The ZR trophy rear lamps came off a ZR, probably from Bradford. One of those things where I thought, they look cack. They look shite on here, but let's put them on anyway and see whether it's gonna work or not. I never looked back. I never decided that it didn't look right. I mean, they are tacky, but that does kind of go with the rest of the car. I love this car, I really do. But I'm not saying it's a good car. Well, I mean, it is a good car as far as reliability is concerned, and it's certainly a standout car. It turns more heads than a lady with a booty, but for different reasons. In case you didn't know, the 42 is the meaning of life, according to Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, where the most powerful computer in the world took something like 1 million years to figure out what is the meaning of life. 42. Does that seem apt? Possibly not. But my original plan was it was going to be called the 27, because it's a bit more than just a 25. The 7 on the Rover 75 was way too big, so it would have been like the 7 like that there, and I thought that wouldn't look right. And then I had this idea, a slightly off-centre 42. The pillar badges came off a much older car because they stopped putting these on around 2001. First change of bonnet was actually red, but it had loads of lacquer peel, although I made a feature of that. Then it became black. I sold a yellow ZR, and as part of that deal I suggested that this particular yellow ZR should come with a black bonnet. In fact, I insisted, because I wanted that bonnet. I got it. The headlamps were quite faded originally, and then I found that I had these ZR headlamps that were much more like it. Why has it got a gold bezel? That's original from the original bumper. Well, it's all about the near side being less matched than the driver's side. The Rover 25 did not come with roof rails. That's the Streetwise, another interchangeable part. It meant I had to drill holes in the roof so they could be fit, because they didn't design it with having roof rails in the first place. It was an afterthought. They're not built in such a way where you can carry much weight on, so it's best not to carry any. It's just a look thing. And I think they look rather dapper. From the same car that I got that green wing off, I also had these weirdly hypnotic door inserts. And then this from the last of the 25s, where they had one last ditch at trying to make it look a bit more classy. The most exciting thing, and the most guilty thing, I feel though, was where I collected this particular green 25. It had been vandalised. I'd already agreed to go over and see it. I got there, the windscreen was smashed and the catalytic converter had been stolen off of it, and every bit of it was kicked and damaged, and then it wouldn't start either. And the lady that owned the car was shouting, effing and jeffing at her neighbours and stuff like this, because for some reason she didn't realise it had been that badly damaged. And she had this little boy who was crying his eyes out and asking me, begging me, are you going to fix it? And I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do. There's no way I'm going to bother trying to fix this. It's just really not worth it. But I lied and said, yeah, I would do. And for some reason, that's kind of stuck with me as something I feel bad about. And then I took these door cards off. I found a £20 note behind one with a betting slip. Could have been there for many years. Oh, hello. In my other lockup, I have a PPD dashboard. And what that is a dashboard with a slightly different material to this. It is softer, and it has a little pretend wooden bit in the thing there to try and fool the new owner into believing they're getting something as good as the car it replaced. Anyway, I came to the conclusion that I can't really be bothered to take a dashboard out just to fit a different one. It doesn't really matter that much. The clocks are original. The steering wheel is off an MGF. That vent was smashed. That clock didn't work. The heater controls also didn't work. What happens with these quite often is there's two cables behind there and they get stuck. And rather than not yanking it, it gets yanked until the button comes off. Obviously, not by me. Another early job I did with this was to replace the CAC carpet with a PPD carpet, because it is a proper carpet. And I had that for a number of years. But now, I have a carpet out of an R3. Yeah, it needs vacuuming, but there was never a 25 with a carpet this colour. And there was never a 25 with an armrest. An armrest from an R8 with no lid that I've had to adapt with a 45 lid. So it doesn't fit entirely, but it fits enough. Yep, this padded bit here, of course, came out of a BRM. 25's never had this. This didn't actually fit because it was different, so I had to glue it in place. And that gear knob came out of an MGTF. You see, that's one of the wonderful things about this particular car. So many interchangeable parts. The base thing is a Rover 25, but the model before, the R3, all the bits fit with that except for its face. The Streetwise, pretty much the same thing, all those bits fit. The R8, some of those bits are the same, so some of those bits can go in. Like that there. The MG, F and TF has bits that you can just swap over, and that's what I've done. Could I get to the end of this video without mentioning the emo elephant in the room? Yep, my bespoke headlining that I've made from bits of foam, again just to see whether I like the idea, has stayed, although it's fallen apart. But it's fallen apart enough, and I've had it here long enough to know that I'm going to take it all back off again at some point and do it properly. Look, there's a bit missing there. That's peeling off. You can probably tell I'm not overly bothered by that, because for years I had this drooping headlining that really did droop. It was just held in by the interior light, and the rest of it was actually touching my bunts. I just didn't really care. It doesn't really matter, does it? And then I took the headlining out, and then I didn't really care. You know, it's just no headlining. I drove it around all over the place with no headlining. It was only when it got to winter and the condensation started to become a problem when I decided to do something about it. Dear bearded, lovely Johnny Crook friend, I have a small version of him here. Now, in real life, I don't think he's quite as muscular, and he's a lot bigger than that. But he does wear the same t-shirt. He's always wearing his t-shirt, he's our Johnny. And I feel that this model started to just be part of the car. It's always in the car. But maybe I should mount it on the roof, sat on the roof rail, or simply glued to the top. Or, even better probably, would be to straddle the aerial. Oh, that's getting a bit broke. Maybe on that side. Yeah, I like that. Before I talk about the damp boot and what's under the bonnet, I'd like to mention one of the things that really has made this car complete. The 17-inch 11-spoke wheels, painted, powder coated in white. White being a terrible colour for alloy wheels, unless it's something like this. It suits this. They're a bit dirty at the moment. In fact, the whole car could do with a wash. But in some ways, I think I prefer these wheels with a bit of dirt on, because they're that bright. It's like, you know when you feel a bit embarrassed because you bought a new pair of trainers and they're just too white? It's a bit like that. That wasn't the only gift from Jake, because recently at Pride of Longbridge, he presented me with this bespoke badge that sparkles an awful lot in the light, as it's doing right now. Good, that, innit? Yes. That was a bit of a dad run. What about the repairs? The necessary repairs to keep this car alive and on the road? Well, there's been a few of them, but one of them has never been corrosion. That's always been fine. I've never even had to adjust the handbrake, such as the head gasket, done the cam belt, the clutch as well. I mean, it's done a fair bit of mileage since I've owned it. And it's the original engine, and it still sounds rather smooth. And to give it that fighty sound, rather than fit in a performance air filter, I've simply turned the air filter that I have upside down. Looks a bit grotty actually. See, sounds fierce or stupid, depending on your point of view. Maybe it is a bit stupid, it's a rather silly thing to do, but I can't help but just like it. One day I'll deal with this issue that I gave myself of having a double positive set of leads. I was doing some conking out one day due to not earthing properly, and I couldn't find the correct lead. So I just retrofit a positive lead. That's fun. Nobody else has got one of those. Behind the grille here, you will find, should you look, not 2 horns, or 3 or 4, but 8. 8 horns, correct. I fitted them onto the bumper support and then rigged up a relay and another fuse. Actually, Senior must have did quite a bit of that. And now, you can hear 8 horns. It draws that much power that if you've got the lights on with the engine running, the lights go dim. This rather dapper car isn't just famous around where I live and within the Rover community, but it's been on many a different YouTube channel. Joseph Lloyd, for example, he drove it and he liked it very much. Steve Berry of Top Gear, he drove it. We did a video and he said, my car is his favourite ever. Nigel Boaty drove it, of Boaty's World. He took it home, did what I consider to be one of his very best videos, which doesn't take much. He reported that possibly the clutch was on its way out. How could he have known? Because it was perfectly fine for another year later, but maybe that biting point that he felt for him would have meant the clutch would have been toast within a week. But most notable of all was JM on Cars. I went down to see him. He bought me lunch. He drove it and he loved it. He loved it so much that he went out and bought himself a ZR and a ZS and a ZT. And for a Ferrari man, that's quite impressive. So, although the car is finished as a concept, it isn't really finished as a project. Various bits of rusty things to sort out and finally get to the bottom of the leaky boot and realign the front bumper better. There's also just one other thing, as well as the headlining. One other thing to go on it, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, because that will possibly just end up in another video somewhere. But for the moment, I'm just going to say that after this month, there's a fair chance I might just put this car away until next year, because I don't really want to be using it all the time. I've got lots of other projects that I need to be getting on with, and whilst I have this sat here, I'm so much less likely to crack on and do it. I always finish off my videos by thanking you all for watching and liking and subscribing and being channel members, etc. But really I have so many more people to thank for the progress on this car. Without all of the help I've had with these little bits here and there, like the brakes, like the exhaust, like the clutch, like the advice from the garage, like the wheels, like the front bumper, like the sticker on the front, etc. I still would have kept it going, but without the support on the channel, there's a fair chance I may have just got bored. And so I'm just hoping that you're not too bored by seeing this car again, because there's a part of me that thinks everyone's seen enough of this car now, surely. You know, move on to something else, regardless of the fact that this channel was born of this car. It is the mascot of the channel. There are now 87 individual videos in this playlist for this car alone. I'm not going to assume you've got nothing better to do, but those videos cover everything except for the very start. So if you really do like this car and want to see what the bloody hell it is I'm talking about, just go and watch some. And with that, it's almost an end of an era. Mission accomplished. Time to move on to other projects, and maybe a project that's just as daft. I'd quite like to do that, actually. In the meantime, I'm just going to enjoy driving this car for the rest of the month. So, thank you again, and bye-bye. Looking for my little colourful friend. He's in the